from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to a new episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today, I'm very pleased. Joining me, Greg Marlin, CTO of ZKcandy. Greg, the way I love to do it is I keep it to my guests to introduce themselves. So tell me a little bit more about you, your background, and what you're currently up to, just as a, kind of a teaser for the audience. We're going to talk a lot about gaming today, AI, automation, and Web3, NFT. So Greg, I don't want to take much from your time. The floor is yours. So, and thank you again for being with me here today.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here, and thank you for the invitation. So I'm a long-time technologist. So I've founded companies in SaaS, in crypto, and AI as well. And currently, I'm focused on being CTO of ZKcandy, as you mentioned. So that's a layer 2 blockchain network where we run the chain. It's a layer 2 built with the ZK Sync, ZK Stack on Ethereum as the layer 1. And we also build, a kind of unique experience for both developers and gamers to, really experience a very seamless onboarding and fun experience that leverages the best of what we can with blockchain. In my spare time as well, I also I founded CEO.ai, which is kind of my personal AI venture, and I use it daily in my own work, so that helps me. I sort of have built it in stealth for the last year and a half. And I also I founded and I still maintain IDEXO, which is was kind of the first like low code SDK for Web3 and NFTs. And it actually, we've done some very new stuff for integration with ZKcandy. And we have actually a new client coming up that's minting 6,000 soulbound tokens on ZKcandy for education. It's really, really kind of an interesting client. Let's say SBT innovation happening on ZKcandy. So, I'm pretty busy with all those things. I think, we're going to be talking a lot about gaming and AI. So I look forward to talking about that.
Great. And thank you again for being here with me today, Greg. Now, let's start. I like to do a little bit of research before I do the actual recording with my guests. So two things caught my eye. So, of course, AI agents, I was like wondering what's happening in general, right? And found out that it's a growing market. I mean, in general. And then I figured out that you think that the future in gaming experience lies in AI agent. Now, let's break this down. So first, let's, just for the audience, for the sake of, just explaining things about what an AI agent is. And then let's give them, Greg, if you don't mind, an idea how, you foresee this AI agent into the gaming, and feel free to explain it in details.
Sure. So, I think there's sort of two ways people approach talking about it in the market, right? So one thing is like, for me, like the core agent is made up of, initial prompts, right? So you have your user prompt, you have your system prompt, and you have the model, and this is like the very basic, simple encapsulation of an agent. You might add to that custom memories. So that is typically vector embedding. So you have an association with that agent, and depending on how you set up the technology behind it, you can have, it just changes how it will leverage those memories, but you can associate with an agent, a whole set of custom memories separate from the memory of the LLM model that it's using, whether that be like a Claude from Anthropic, or, O1 or O3 or whatever from ChatGPT or OpenAI. So it really depends, and each models have their strengths. They have a perspective. They might have a different memory or training set. They might be better at or worse at different things. And then when you give it custom memory, you're kind of giving it a better way, a quicker and better way to access those memories, and quite possibly the only way that it had memories, because most often there's something very specific, such as, let's say, your code or the gaming code, like how the game works, how the game you just created yesterday works, is not going to be, definitely not going to be in the memory set of Claude or ChatGPT. So memories can be important. And then also when you get into tool use, right? So there's a whole another set of feature set that you can add to an agent related to what tools it can use. And here you're training it. Okay, when I give you this instruction, I want you to output exactly this, and then you connect that to the tool, right? So it's like, I want you to send an email on Gmail, right? So I'm going to prompt you something, and then that's going to, and most often it's in a workflow. So it's actually not you, it's another tool is sending an API call to your agent. Your agent's doing a bunch of stuff and then pushing it out. So you're teaching it to write a Gmail. So, within one little agent can be either just a very simple system prompt and a user prompt. And when you make that user prompt variable, it will give you some answer in a chat flow. This is like probably the most basic an AI agent can be, right? To what I just described, where it has its own custom memories and it has its own, tool set that it uses. But the reality is that one AI agent on its own is, even with all its powers, which, by the way, what I just described has a lot of power. Even a year ago, I was almost always working in workflows. So you can imagine what I've done in the last year and the advances that we've had. So even very early on, like a year ago, a lot of the power was, how do you combine AI agents together, work them together, create, these flows. And there was a lot of PQ startups that were only focused on that. And now the trick, and why I said it, is that some people will say, and I can see where they go about it, and I think it makes sense in some contexts, but it's confusing for users, right? So some people will say, you know what, all those agents working together, I'm not going to tell anybody about it because I don't want to, confuse them. So I'm going to combine them together, and I'm going to make one simple prompt layer in the front, right? And I'm going to call that an agent, right? But it's not an agent. It's like 100 agents working under the covers, right? But to the user, it's one agent, right? So that's always a little tricky, is like, what do you mean by agent? Do you mean this like full application of multiple agents working together, or do you really mean, all the way back down to that very simple agent that we talked about with system prompt and user prompt, right? So it really is, it depends, right? And in the context of gaming, like gaming agents, probably we're talking a little bit like the last one, right? Because if we are saying, well, we want to give you a companion, right, who's going to help you in your gaming experience, you kind of want to think about it like your little pet that goes along with you in the game, right? Like in a World of Warcraft kind of scenario or whatever, you get these little pets and they come along with you, or depending on your class of fighter, you might actually have an animal that fights with you, so there you're going to probably have under the cover a bunch of different agents doing a bunch of different things, and it's all going to be kind of encapsulated with your one companion that you know, right? So is that kind of a good explanation, or?
Yeah, of course, and I have like a couple of follow-up questions on that. So you kind of touch base on it, like for me, like as a gamer, like what would be, you think, the biggest, I would say, change from a player's experience perspective?
So the good thing, the good thing about tech is that, like in gaming, is that they already have like the users fairly well trained on these kind of things. So gamers are used to having macros and things like that, where they can run different things to kind of change their gaming experience. And and then of course NPCs, right? So like non-player characters are very well established in a lot of games. So I think it's really just kind of leveraging the possibilities of what AI agents, like more intelligent NPCs, more intelligent companions, what they can bring to the table, and probably create some new gaming experiences. For us, like we are we started first by kind of making it really easy for newbies, not
Mhm.
gaming newbies, but crypto newbies, to be onboarded into the ZKcandy experience. So before we talk anything about AI, we have a way for people to simply create their wallet and use it via an email, right? So you just
Mhm.
log in with an email. By the way, there's not even a password, because we're using one-time password system, right? So you put in your email, you get an OTP, you log into the game, and that works for any game that implements our kind of passport SDK in their game. So you log in with your email. You don't connected to your email, you have a wallet, right? And the wallet is able to you can purchase your gems in the game, or you can earn your NFTs, etc., right? So it's really about like what does the blockchain give you um that you don't get in a typical gaming experience. And we start, of course, with the most basic thing that everyone talked about, is just like, okay, you can own your in-game assets, right? I can't just suddenly turn off your account and you don't have access to your all your life's work in that game, right? If you
Right.
earn a legendary sword or something, you can transfer it, you can sell it. We're not standing in your way, right? And so of course you just want to start with those basic layers, and then what we found and what we have coming up so is we have like kind of a partnership aspect, but we're starting with the concept of rating. Like the most social aspect of a lot of these games was, how do we all work together on a common goal to defeat some monster or whatever. And we have kind of some AI things coming with that, where you can include your AI in a raid, and basically we call it raid quests, right? So you have these raids that you can spontaneously create together. In my AI can work with your AI to go and help accomplish those quests. And there's kind of ways to earn and that kind of thing with that. And we're actually so I think you probably noticed I authored a standard. It's an accepted standard in ERC. So ERC 7662 defines what an AI agent NFT is. And these raid quests will start as like 2000 ERC 7662 NFTs,
Mhm.
AI agent NFTs. And we're going to be programming some really exciting features into those NFTs, and how how you use them, and how you can actually build on them. And I think I touched on some of that earlier. Giving your AI agent custom memories, maybe custom skills that are specifically good at different aspects of what makes a good raider. And then you can also trade skills and that kind of thing. So it's really going to be fun, and that's going to come out probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Great. Actually, I was about, I wanted to follow up about the standard, but before, going back to that, um, of course, I'm big believer in AI, but I'm sure like other verticals where people would have some concerns about the AI. Um, what you tell someone who tell you now, Greg, like, hey, what would happen if the AI, as we know, like everyone knows about the hallucination, for example, or for example unpredictability, how you answer people who might question, for example, the risk of breaking the game design or the rules, or I don't know, like all these things. So what kind of countermeasures are there, if there is any, or if there's even a possibility for something like this to happen in that space?
Yeah, well, for sure. I originally got into AI, so I created my first AI company in like 2012, but I registered my AI domains back in 2010. So
Wow.
like I already knew what was coming, right? And actually the reason I got into it is I said, you know what? I saw the future already, and I said people are not going to put enough safety into them, right? So I want to stay current with AI always to know how to turn it off, right? If it goes out of control, right? And so far, I don't like my threat level is not there. Like I think people are waking up now to the risks that I saw in 2010. So that's a good thing. The more people that are aware, is the better. Of course, the risk to employment numbers is always going to be there. I think it can be mitigated, but regarding the risk to gaming specifically, it's not healthcare. It's not as high risk as that. But even in gaming, I think and how my answer to gaming, how you can kind of apply it to other industries that are much higher risk. Um, so the number one is that of course for the problem of hallucination, I've always found the best uh, answer to an AI that hallucinates is another AI to correct it, right? So here's actually the most basic AI workflow is when you have an AI that's going to output, you can stick another AI, train it on all the ways that are typical hallucinations or key areas that you definitely don't want it to hallucinate at, right? And then you ask the second agent to review the output of the first agent and correct anything that would be a hallucination, right? So that's always like you can put one AI together with another AI and you're going to get a better result. But even there, like LLMs are really good at a lot of things.
Hmm.
But in order to get it to do exactly what you want, that's where things like tool use come in, or you need to massage it a little bit, and then you need to put guardrails around it. And how you program, when you're building AI on the back end, right? However, you're running your back end microservices or services, um, you have a lot of flexibility that you don't get in a chat window, right? So I mean, most of my day when I'm programming AI, it's on the back end. I don't, because it's for myself. I don't really need to think much more about the user than about myself as the user. But that's where a lot of the so when a lot of the guardrails come into that is like how are you massaging the outputs, the inputs and the outputs, in the perspective of how you're going, how the end user is going to interact with it and see it. So I think it would be like, in terms of keeping it from breaking the rules of a game, that would be pretty simple. And in but of course, in the concept of spontaneous quests that players can create together, it's a little bit harder, right? Because you have to anticipate all the different things, and but you can give yourself ways to fix it adaptively. in the case of something like, healthcare, where you'd be worried that the AI agent might completely mess up the diagnosis and B, the prescription, right? I think you're probably having to put in a lot of guardrails, and I think I think that will slow down the development time, and people who rush that will probably get caught. So we'll see.
Yeah. Now, talking about like, we talked about the agents when you mentioned blockchain and FT multiple times. So you mentioned about the ERC 7662, and so what I'm curious about, and maybe for the audience, like first, like what's the significance of standardizing the AI agents on the chain, and what do you think like in the general like view would make the blockchain gaming ecosystem like truly usable for both developers and players?
So the key is that in order for you put a lot of time into a prompt to get it right, right? And an NFT, if you were to put everything in the metadata, right, then anyone can just look up the metadata, they get the prompt, they build the agent, and off they go, right? So there's no kind of market benefit to you writing an AI agent as an NFT unless you're going to encrypt the prompts, right? So it was, and so basically the standard was, I wrote that actually, a year and 3 months ago, I think I started writing that standard, right? So it was still quite new, AI agents at all. And so I said it'd be a good idea to write a standard so that, marketplaces or anyone want to sell it can follow this standard and know this is how I expect to get an AI agent NFT that is encrypted. And, if people write to the standard, then, it's the same way, it's the same kind of benefit of ERC 721 or ERC 20 is that you know what to expect. If someone says I have an ERC 20 token, okay, it's going to have these, storage variables, functions, etc. And so you can expect to add a ERC 20 to your exchange, and you're going to be expecting these functions, etc. Right? So in the same way, ERC 762 defines how you should be able to expect the encryption to work so that someone can, have an NFT that is a ERC 7662, and you're expecting to be able to have that user, so only the owner of the NFT can decrypt the prompts. So that's the beauty of it, is that you can list your AI agent NFT on OpenSea. Someone can come to it, see the public information, but they cannot access the underlying, secret sauce of that AI agent NFT. They have to buy it. Only once they buy it, now they can see the prompts. So that's kind of it's creating the necessary technology to make AI agent NFTs commercially feasible, basically. And and I will be kind of extending that with RateQuest, but that's like the core basis. And that's like that when you're writing a standard, it's like you try and be careful not to overly specify the implementation details, while making enough of the what's the benefit, what is new here, right? And what is new there is the kind of definition of how prompts are stored in relation to an NFT, and how they are encrypted so that they're not exposed.
Cool. So that's very, very insightful, Greg. Now I want to ask you something. Like, so this is something completely new, I believe. Because when I was so how far do you think like we're gonna need until we have like a industry adoption for whether it's on the AI agents, whether it's for the for the blockchain in the gaming?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the big studios that have nothing to do with blockchain will obviously be implementing AI. I think I heard something, they're doing some cool stuff at, Grand Theft Auto or whatever. So of course they will, implement more kind of companion type user experiences. But I think, the like, so the companion aspect is actually a really interesting point, and a really interesting point when we're talking again about the AI agent NFTs. Like, if some service provider gives you an AI companion, do you own that companion? Right? Do you have access? Like, do you have always
Yeah.
on access to their memory? So these are actually very good applications for blockchain. So encrypting the memory such that the memory of the companion is only available to the owner, and basically regulating that by and using an NFT is a pretty powerful technology solution for that. And that's something that we'll have already with RAID quests, these encrypted memories. So I think blockchain has a role to play, and there'll be of course, a big tug of war, because maybe, or not maybe, definitely, some service providers will say, well, my part of my value is that I own all the memories of the companions, right? And I can data mine and use those memories to train better and better companions, right? Or even worse, um, I can use those memories to learn about human behavior, and make games more addictive, or make whatever more addictive, or move populations in certain ways. So I think that's always going to be the push and pull, and I think blockchain has a role to play in saying, we're going to give users more control, more agency, if you want to use that word, over their AI experience. And of course, like I think everyone knows that at some point, probably soon, a 5-year-old will start with an AI agent that basically follows them through life and helps them complete tasks in a better way. And there'll probably be quite a few providers of that. And this will be one of the core issues, right? Who
Yeah.
controls the memories?
Great, Greg. One thing maybe we didn't discuss much. So we talked about the player experience. What about the developer experience? Like how that looks like in this Web3 gaming space, and how you help them at the ZK Candy.
Yeah, so that's so we've done some really neat things in first of all, we give them a hosted authentication solution. So they don't have to worry about authentication in the game. They just apply our SDK. And so every game that is on the network is taking advantage of these passports. So if you have a game and user could just go with their email, same email they use in any other game on ZKcandy, and boom, they have their wallet. Their wallet is there with their hosted wallet. They can also connect an external wallet. We don't force them to use Passport, but they can, and they can fund wallets back and forth seamlessly, and they can transfer NFTs, etc. Right? So, but it means that the user doesn't have to have a different wallet experience on each game. That's a tremendous friction point, right? You would think if you're part of a network, you're playing on a blockchain network, that one game should be somehow compatible with the other, right? You're not holding 10 wallets from 10 different games. So, and of course, if you're using an external wallet, that's the same thing, right? But here's just another level of simplicity. But that also works then for signing with Ethereum or anything. So they have the whole kind of sign-in kit. They don't need to worry about authentication. So that's number one. Number two is, okay, so you have this hosted wallet experience and you want to allow them to transact with it. So you've created your custom smart contract. It's not a standard one. You created it, specifically for your game. And yet you can go to our Passport and you just basically upload your ABI, and it will, parse that and give you methods now that you can use. There's a set of standard methods, and you say, okay, I'm going to use, this player is using this method in the smart contract. Each smart contract has an ID that is generated when you upload your ABI.
Mm-hmm.
And it's making, a call to this ID and this method with these parameters, and it just works. So they're getting this kind of hosted, Web3 interaction kit that every game on ZKcandy gets. So it's just like you go down the line, we're trying to simplify each piece. And so when it comes to adding, AI, we'll again, this is in the works. It's not live, but we'll have a way of implementing any AI solution that we have available. Developers will just be able to interact with it in as a simple way as we can, right? So really, then it becomes less about the technology experience and just all about the user experience. What are we doing to make the user experience better? And eventually, if you just layer on enough simplicity, I guess, make it as easy as possible for users to interact with it. Eventually, you'll hit that one feature that, or one key benefit that sells the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's really it's exciting, I would say. And building on that, Greg, from your experience, if if you want to give an advice maybe for founders and builders in this space, like what do you think in the gaming mainly, of course, leveraging AI and Web3 and blockchain, what do you think, like these founders they would be focusing on today from product features perspective and vision perspective to have success?
Yeah, I think there's kind of two ways to go about it. My first advice would probably just go with composability, right? So think about,
Right.
try and build something as small as you can that you think is still meaty enough that it's hard enough for that someone doesn't want to just build it themselves, right? So if you make something too small and you come to a CTO or even a CEO company, and you say, hey, I would like to integrate this in your game, and it's like, well, that's 10 lines of code. I'll just write those 10 lines of code. Why not?
Yeah.
So it can't be too small, but if you find the right thing where it's like, that's 8 hours of work or more to build, and this person is really specializing in it, and they've already hooked it up to a few things, that can be interesting. Then you say, yeah, sure, I could build that, but then I would have to maintain it, and they're learning every day. They're talking to all the gaming companies, right? Something like that is useful. And then if you tell me, well, it's actually 80 hours to build, well, that's really, really good kind of feature set. So little plug and play things can be very, very useful, and make the business model as easy to take on as possible. I find the opposite of that is, you say, I think this always works. This is also why I taking my time with CEO.ai, even though it's a very sexy name and a lot of markets, that in AI specifically, the obvious opportunities are going to be handled by everybody, right? So, and I think AI is still like very still very new, and I think the really big opportunity takes time to really see what it is. So, and I'm not devoting it 100% of the time. So it's different. If I was a founder, okay, I'm going to devote 100% of my time to a problem, I would probably say this is all still the best advice. If you're not going to go with plug and play, and you have to be fine. You're not going to be the big cheese, right? If you're just a little plug play thing, you can make a very good life at it, and it'll grow to something. But you're always a little bit in danger of being, just sort of added as an additional feature to some platform, right?
Yeah.
The other way to go about it is to do a lot of research into an area and say, well, I have a good sense of where the market will be 1 year from today. And I'm going to build something for that, right? So that by the time I'm finished building the product, the right market timing will be there. But this is very hard to do, right? But at least, like, if you take a year to build something quietly, and nobody, by the time you've built it, someone says, "Great, I'm going to copy that," and you're like, "Great, I'll see you in a year." But I will have moved a year forward since then, right? So it's like you want to have a certain amount of. If you just build something in a weekend, well, guess what? Someone else can build it in a weekend too, right? So it's a little tricky to, especially if you want to be a founder who's not going to raise $10 million and really blast the market with marketing. Then you're always going to be susceptible to copycats. And in today's market, you can build amazing things. I'm always amazed when I build in like 6 hours using AI. I'm building stuff in 6 hours that would take a team of 100 people, 6 months to build not too long ago, right? So is really tricky to figure out. Like, you're not going to be able to say, well, we're advanced technologists, that's our moat. That's not going to work in anybody's. No, anyone who knows anything about what you can do with this technology is going to say, well, I doubt that. So it's really about kind of finding, I would say, like, something that and that you were able to build long enough, infrastructure, so that when you hit the market, you can kind of capture a lot. I think it goes back a little bit. This is more marketing advice. If you find a core group of users, that kind of initial beachhead target audience, and you kind of get enough market share in that audience, you build something very specific for them, you capture enough of the market, you start to drive that word of mouth engine. I think that's always a good strategy. It's even today a good strategy. So yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be a founder. It's always tough to be founder in any market. But today, where one of the biggest challenges always in founders, just copycats, right? Copycats,
Right.
especially if they copy you and they raise a bunch of money and give the product away for free just to try and knock you out of the market. There's going to be a lot of that, I'm sure, even
Yeah.
more than before.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, copycat has always have been the problem there, Greg, as you know. Absolutely. Greg, as we almost come to an end, like, any final thing that you want to share, maybe something I didn't ask you about, and where people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I mean, ZKcandy, we're live on mainnet. We've been live for a while. We recently completed an acquisition of Chroma, and we've got some exciting things coming out for Chroma related to this raid quest. So I think, number one, people should be looking for our announcements about raid quest. In terms of finding about ZKcandy in general, of course, zkcandy.io is the main site. You'll see our kind of our Explorer, our SDKs, and everything to use it. And we have a number of games to play, like Candy Defense and Pepe Kingdom, that are like super popular. So I think that's kind of the good way to get in touch with me personally. I have a LinkedIn, so that's probably the easiest way. I'm pretty sure you can find me pretty easily on there. Yeah, and if you have any questions about any of the stuff I'm working on, then my door's always open.
Great. Thank you so much, Greg. Now, I will make the audience lives easy. I will put the links in the show notes so they don't have to look right and left. And as we come to an end, Greg, I want to thank you again. I learned a ton of things from you today, like about this really cool integration, or like, let me call it this intersection of two, actually three exciting words: gaming, AI, and blockchain and Web3. So I learned a ton from you today. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us and your insights. I really appreciate this. And this is for the audience. This is how I end my episodes. So, guys, if you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, please give me a favor and subscribe, share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keep coming again and again, thank you very much for your support. Thank you for being loyal to the show. Thank you for taking the show to a new level this year, 2025. Now we're airing this probably in July. We're recording in June. The podcast is doing really well this year. We've been on the top 200 charts in multiple countries at the same time. And this cannot be happen without my guests. So really appreciate this. And as I say, always stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.